Tonight for the final time. An Australian superstar in every sense of the word, Barry Humphries and his many personalities dead at 89. From the Prime Minister to famous faces around the world, tributes and gladioli for a comedy genius. Also breaking tonight, airport arrest, a major police breakthrough over the murder of a man gunned down next to a 12-year-old boy. Apartment inferno, a family saved by hero neighbours, hundreds forced to flee. The welcome return of warning signs ending millions of dollars in fines for drivers. The King of Wales, Ryan Reynolds, helps turn a Hollywood dream into reality. And Manly keep the Tigers winless, but it comes at a huge cost.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. There's a torrent of tributes from right across the globe tonight for legendary Australian actor and comedian Barry Humphries, who died last night at the age of 89. Over a career spanning almost 70 years, Humphries held up a crystal clear mirror to Australian society, and often it made for uncomfortable viewing. He once said his favourite sound was an audience gasping in shock. A master of satire and timing, his best-loved characters, Dame Edna Everage and Celeste Patterson, were flamboyant, irreverent and always very funny.
It's a difficult day when Australia loses not one national treasure, but three.
Oh, you smell lovely. Thank you. I always loved garlic prawns.
Dame Edna, Celeste.
You know, we've got more culture than a penicillin factory in Australia. No worries.
And their creator, Barry Humphries. Actor, writer and comic genius behind some of our most loved characters.
Oh, darling, a lovely little face too. Oh, I bet you were once an attractive woman.
Humphries is hailed as the world's most successful solo theatrical performer. He's taken his alter egos on a 6-decade world tour. No other Australian performer comes close.
What was that, James? Oh, darling, you know the acrylic is a protected animal.
The things I do in the theatre amuse me, and that's the only reason I do it. I do this entirely for my own pleasure.
He was born 1934, raised in Kew, Melbourne, a self-confessed spoiled brat. He always denied his mother was the inspiration for Edna, but it was a troubled relationship.
My mother once said, you know, your father and I really don't know where you came from. Really upset me because I thought perhaps I'm adopted.
Schooled at prestigious Melbourne Grammar, he was different, especially at the rugby.
He used to go and sit then with his back to the game, knitting.
His school play performances
There.
saw his first appearance in women's clothes. A born subversive, he loved public pranks. Once on a plane trip, he pretended to vomit into a bag, then eat it.
What people didn't know was, in fact, that you fill the bag full of potato salad beforehand.
Yes, it was, in fact, tinned sweet corn, I hasten to say.
But then he introduced a character that would outshine everything he'd done and would go on to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Norm Everage.
Edna was created 1955.
Excuse I?
A shy and dowdy housewife from Moonee Ponds.
Mind you, television's marvellous, isn't it?
Everage mocked the average, a satire of suburbia.
This is an Indigenous Australian savoury. Can you guess what it's called? Please, don't be unnecessary.
But the self-described housewife superstar refused to stay in the suburbs. She went global. Moving to the UK in 1959, Humphries hooked up with Dudley Moore, Peter Cook, Spike Milligan.
He's the best thing that came out of Australia.
Gough Whitlam conferred her with a damehood. Barry Humphries helped put Australia on the map by ridiculing it, especially with this early character he created, Ocker roustabout Barry Mackenzie, famously played by Barry Crocker.
What have you got in this case? Personal effects.
He doubled down with Celeste, our cultural attaché.
Australia, frankly, takes the prize as the best place on earth to satirise.
Dishevelled, drunk, Lecherous, hilarious.
There's a bit of Henry Kissinger in me. I see myself as
Eventually, the critics were silenced. Sir Les and Edna were embraced, and Barry Humphries was declared one of the country's greatest ever exports.
What a coincidence that we both arrived at the same time. Isn't that spooky?
A favourite of the royal family, they were even happy to play as sidemen.
They've found me a better seat.
The solo shows broke records.
A beautiful home there.
Very nice,
I'm
yes.
sure you have. And look, you make your own clothes too.
Dame Edna, the great dame.
You should be lying on the floor to get this shot.
Megastar, then gigastar. 68 years. Few comic characters in the world have lasted so long.
And every now and then she says something extremely funny. And I stand there and think, I wish I'd thought of that.
He won the Tony, Olivier and Mo Awards, received an Order of Australia, Commander of the British Empire. Only one other ever shared the stage with her, long-suffering bridesmaid, Madge Alsop.
Madge, darling, have you got your script? Have you got your script? Don't snap at me, Madge.
There were the trademark glasses, the gladioli.
What other show does this? Could you imagine Barry Manilow doing this?
And the fabulous frocks, so precious they're kept in the vault at the Melbourne Arts Centre, treasures of state.
That's a very early marsupial dress.
They're all marsupial.
He staged a series of smash hit TV shows and multiple film roles, from Bedazzled in the 60s
Oh, you're his new little favourite, are you?
to The Hobbit as the Great Goblin.
Perhaps you know of whom I speak.
He was the voice of Bruce the Shark in Finding Nemo.
Hello, my name is Bruce.
He's done Broadway, the West End.
I'm better than Judi Dench. Much. And, I'm afraid, taller.
And all the time he was addicted to public performance, he was terrified by it.
I get great excitement and stimulation from doing stuff in public, even though I'm nervous. And I have very bad stage fright. You won't believe it, but it's true.
But in 2012, he announced his final tour, tired of the travelling.
Hello, possums.
Humphries said he felt like he was turning into one of his older, treasured characters, Sandy Stone.
There's a lovely crowd of chappies at the Louisa Hutchinson Memorial Bowling Green.
His wife and longest love, former actress Lizzie Spender. Before that, 3 marriages and 4 children.
And you know, it's really given me pleasure to make so many women so rich.
2 of those marriages devastated by the impact of severe alcoholism, which almost claimed him too.
Normal people go to parties and get drunk. I used to get drunk and go to parties.
But he kicked the bottle in 1973, said he spent 50 years sober and sexy.
I am regarded as one of the world's great beauties.
One of the last public sightings of him, December in Sydney, just before he suffered a fall, broke his hip and developed complications. He told the papers he planned to be back on stage, his favourite place.
I have actually stepped onto a stage, heard a big ovation and thought to myself, alone at last. I guess that'll be my epitaph.
He was 89 years old, the gigastar who's taken his place in the heavens.
Good night, possum.
Chris Reason, 7 News.
Barry Humphries made people laugh, really laugh, across generations from all sections of society. Today, many of those whose lives he touched paid tribute to his comic genius. A man who could walk with kings and queens, who never lost his common touch.
It is who Barry Humphries was that even upon hearing of his death, we still smile because of the joy he brought us all.
He is one of the most loved of Australians, and I pay tribute to him today.
Many have.
We drank together and we both got sober together in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Ross was there when his friend of half a century created an enduring character who drank more than enough for both of them.
He was the most intelligent human being that I've ever met.
That description shone today. The intellect, the warmth, the dignity.
We're all in pieces as well because he's irreplaceable.
And of course, the naughty glint in that razor-sharp eye.
Barry Humphries has been taking our cultural temperature with a satirical thermometer for, 70 years almost. So, we're all going to feel very lost without his wit and his wisdom.
On Everidge Street in Moonee Ponds, Victoria, where Edna was born, they offered gladioli.
Oh, devastated, really, I was, yes. I loved him.
It's just his wit. He's very, very quick off the mark.
In person, he was a delightful, very quiet, unassuming man.
A comedic genius, loved across the ditch.
Dame Edna is an institution in New Zealand as well.
And across the world.
Barry Humphries, the man who brought us Dame Edna Everidge, has died.
I had gone to the hospital in Sydney to cheer him up, but actually I came out with him having cheered me up.
From the Humphries family, who knew this was coming, he was completely himself until the very end, never losing his brilliant mind, his unique wit and generosity of spirit. The characters he created, which brought laughter to millions, will live on. Edna eclipsed them all, and Barry Crocker shared her debut and the renaissance of Australian film.
It was the first Australian film to make $1 million. We helped start the whole damn thing again.
Barry Humphries could have been anything. He dedicated his life to making us laugh.
Hello, girls. How's your day been so far?
That anyone could be so hilarious was magic. With him only 3 days ago, he was, as ever, making me laugh. No one made me laugh as much or for so many years. You blazed a glorious trail across the globe, and we were blessed to be in your slipstream. Funny, literate, and fiercely intelligent. A wondrously intelligent, entertaining, daring, provocative, mischievous comedy genius. But at Melbourne's International Comedy Festival, which stripped an award in Humphries' honour in 2019 because he described transgender activism taught to children as evil.
Disagree very strongly with a lot of his politics, and I felt it was a shame that towards the end of his life he certainly lost the ability to read the room.
Friends will disagree.
He was a wonderful human being.
They break the mould of him. Goodbye, possums.
To have discovered that I have the gift of making people laugh is a marvellous thing, for which I'm very grateful.
Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
We have breaking news now with an arrest over the killing of a Sydney father gunned down in front of a young boy. Let's go live to Tom Hartley at the Sydney Police Centre. Tom, police allege the man was trying to flee the country.
Yeah, Mark, this is a really big breakthrough for police who've just released this video. Take a look. It shows a 26-year-old Fairfield East man being arrested at Sydney Airport. Now, police will allege this man is behind the murder and shooting of Greenacre father Taha Sabah. Viewers will remember this for the brutality of it. Mr Sabah was ambushed by a gunman seen on CCTV here, stalking him outside the Elite Fight Force gym at Sefton early last month. He was taking a 12-year-old boy there for a sparring session. Now, the gunman fired despite the presence of that young boy. Now, 7 News understands the 26-year-old was planning to leave the country. He was to jump on a flight to Asia, which was delayed, and that's where he was arrested at Sydney Airport. Now, it's also understood he's thought to not be the alleged gunman, but will be accused of significant involvement in the planning and execution of this crime and is facing a murder charge. Now, a strike force has been investigating whether Mr Sabah was the intended target, mistaken identity or collateral damage in someone else's war, Mark. But with no criminal record, his family has always insisted he is not an underworld figure. Mark.
Tom Hartley at Surrey Hills, thank you. To pictures just into the newsroom now, and a large fire has broken out at Disneyland in California. Visitors who'd flocked to the waterfront for a nighttime fireworks display were forced to run for the exits when a giant dragon prop went up in flames. By the time firefighters arrived, black smoke was spreading and the dragon was completely destroyed. No one was injured. The fire is now under investigation. A man has been pulled unconscious from the surf at Little Bay in Sydney's east. Witnesses say he slipped off rocks and was waving for help. Surf lifesavers carried him onto the sand and paramedics performed CPR with the help of a toll helicopter medical crew. He was taken to hospital in a serious condition. A motorcyclist is recovering in hospital after he was T-boned by a ute in Sydney's west. He suffered leg injuries in the crash at Lethbridge Park shortly after 1:30 this afternoon. The 44-year-old was taken to hospital under police guard after being arrested on unrelated matters. Police say his bike was unregistered. Residents have leapt into action to save a family trapped in their Western Sydney unit after a fire broke out. A father of two is in hospital tonight with severe burns, and firefighters are investigating whether a cigarette sparked the blaze.
On the ground floor of a Wentworthville apartment block, a growing inferno.
I saw the huge fire and fume, and fire goes to level 3, up to level 3.
The fire alarm rang out just before midnight, forcing close to 100 residents to flee onto the street.
And I open the curtain and I see the fire and I start freaking out, start panicking, my heart's beating. I'm like, Mum, let's go, we have to get out, there's a fire.
Neighbours grabbing fire hoses and extinguishers, trying to free a father and two children trapped inside, their mother watching on in terror.
I noticed that the lady came past and she tried to go inside again, but the police stopped her.
The mother and two children were treated in hospital for smoke inhalation, while the father was brought here to Concord Hospital, suffering burns to his face. The building's blackened exterior showing just how high flames got. Initial investigation suggests the blaze was sparked by a lit cigarette and fuelled by flammable liquid stored on the veranda. An accident that's left a young family homeless.
I'm so sorry for this family that lose everything, especially their home. There's nothing left.
Taylor Aiken, 7 News.
The Prime Minister has rejected claims that the new relaxed citizenship rules will lead to an influx of New Zealand migrants. Attending a citizenship ceremony in Brisbane alongside the New Zealand Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese says the changes are about treating Kiwis more fairly.
It will just mean that they're treated better when they're here. Simple as that.
By not being able to access the pathway to citizenship, they also haven't been able to access many of the public services that they should be able to rely on.
Earlier, the leaders visited a World War II cemetery to honour fallen Anzac troops. Time for the weather details. Now, Amber, we've seen some sunshine today.
Good evening, Mark. Yes, plenty of sunny breaks in between the cloud cover that rolled in over the coast today. We did see a few scattered showers. They didn't last long, though, before the sunshine returned. But you can see that wet weather here as it passed over Blacktown earlier today. Falls generally only light, though, just a few millimetres in the gauge. Since 9 a.m, we have seen heavier rainfall south of Sydney, though, with heavier totals of more than 40 millimetres recorded near Nowra, also on the north coast around Coffs Harbour today. It looks like we could see a few more showers early tomorrow morning, but they shouldn't last too long. Mark, we've got your full forecast coming up later.
See you then, Amber. Thank you. Warning signs set to save drivers millions of dollars after the break. What to look out for as speed camera warnings return. $5 million in drugs goes up in smoke. Later, Australians already arriving in Gallipoli. This year's service set to be the biggest in years. Two Hollywood superstars, the new kings of Welsh football. And royal celebrations as Prince Louis turns 5.